All right, so today we're diving into something pretty intense. We're going to be looking at Hurricane Helene relief efforts. But we're looking at it through a lens you might not expect,
Okay.
the kind of murky world of misinformation. We've got this article from the Daily Beast, and it digs into how a claim by former President Trump about the relief efforts has stirred up a lot of controversy.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting here is how the situation kind of shines a light on the interplay between politics and disaster relief. And then you throw in the spread of these potentially damaging claims, especially in our hyper-connected world.
Right. Because it's kind of terrifying when you think about it. You're in a disaster zone. You're just trying to pick up the pieces after a hurricane.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're hit with all these rumors about who's getting help and who isn't based on something they can't control.
Absolutely. Because in the wake of a disaster, reliable information, that becomes people's lifeline. It's what helps them make those really crucial decisions. It helps them access aid and ultimately helps them rebuild their lives.
So let's break down what actually happened. This article centers around a social media post by former President Trump, where he alleged the Democrats were being unfairly favored over Republicans in the distribution of aid after Hurricane Helene in North Carolina.
And this claim immediately sparked controversy, particularly because of who called it out, Fox News host Neil Cavuto. During a live interview with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Cavuto directly challenged Trump's statement, labeling it as misinformation.
Which honestly is a pretty big deal. For someone like Cavuto, a prominent voice on a generally conservative-leaning network, to publicly challenge a statement from a figure like Trump, that's huge.
Yeah, it really does. It suggests a potential shift in the media landscape, where even within networks with known political leanings, there's a growing emphasis on fact-checking and holding public figures accountable for the information they're disseminating.
That's a bit of a hopeful sign, at least. So how did Secretary Buttigieg respond to those allegations during the interview?
But Buttigieg was very firm in his denial of any partisan bias in the relief efforts. He emphasized that the primary focus of first responders is to help those in need, period. There's no checklist asking people about their political affiliation, no differentiation between residents of red counties or blue
Well,
counties.
that's reassuring to hear, that such a clear message of impartiality is being conveyed, especially by someone so directly involved in the relief efforts.
And what's even more encouraging is that this pushback against misinformation isn't coming solely from the Biden administration. The article highlights multiple sources, including FEMA, the agency at the heart of the matter, and even Republican Representative Chuck Edwards, who represents a heavily impacted area in North Carolina, all actively debunking these claims of partisan aid distribution.
So it sounds like we're seeing a united front against this particular piece of misinformation.
Yeah.
But this situation is far from isolated. This isn't the first time we've seen these kinds of rumors and false claims pop up after a natural disaster.
Unfortunately, you're right. What this incident reveals is a much broader and deeply concerning pattern. Misinformation seems to be almost predictable in the aftermath of disasters, especially when it comes to the role of FEMA and how resources are allocated.
It makes you wonder why that is. Was it just the chaos of the situation, or there's something more deliberate at play?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but one contributing factor is definitely the emotional vulnerability of the situation. After a disaster, people are scared, stressed, and often desperate for information.
So it's like their defenses are down, and they're more susceptible to believing whatever they hear, especially if it confirms their existing fears or biases.
Exactly. And that's what makes this type of misinformation so dangerous. It preys on those raw emotions and can have very real consequences for both individuals and communities trying to recover.
Yeah, it's scary to think how easily fear can be manipulated, especially in those critical moments when people need clear, accurate information the most.
It is. And this article really drives home the point that this isn't just about spreading rumors. This is about the very real harm that misinformation can inflict.
Okay, so let's unpack those harms a bit further.
Mhm.
Why exactly is misinformation, especially during a crisis, so dangerous?
Well, one of the most immediate consequences is that it erodes public trust in the very institutions that are there to help organizations like FEMA. When people are bombarded with false claims and conspiracy theories, it creates an environment of suspicion and doubt, making them less likely to trust official sources of information or to seek help when they need it most.
It's like that saying, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. But in this case, that lie could have life-altering consequences.
Exactly. And beyond the immediate impact on individuals, misinformation also has this way of sowing discord within communities that are already grappling with a crisis. Spreading rumors about one group receiving preferential treatment or resources being mismanaged, it just breeds resentment and distrust among neighbors, at a time when unity and cooperation are paramount.
It's like turning people against each other at the very moment they need to be coming together to rebuild their lives and communities.
Precisely. And then there's the practical side of things. When misinformation spreads, it diverts crucial resources and attention away from where they're most needed, responding to false leads, investigating unfounded claims. It all takes valuable time and energy away from the critical tasks, like search and rescue, providing medical care, getting essential supplies to those who need them most.
It's a cruel irony. The very act of trying to help and recover is hampered by the spread of false information. It's like trying to put out a fire while someone keeps pouring gasoline on it.
That's a powerful analogy, and it's sadly accurate in many cases. It's why it's so important to understand the different types of misinformation that we often see after disasters. For example, beyond claims of partisan bias, there are often rumors about FEMA funds being diverted for other purposes, like we saw with the claims about aid at the southern border, or false information being spread about the safety of water or shelters.
Which just adds another layer of complexity to an already chaotic and stressful situation.
Exactly, and it makes it that much harder for people to make safe, informed decisions for themselves and their families.
So given the potential consequences and the speed at which misinformation can spread, what can be done to combat it, especially in times of crisis?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If there were easy answers, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But this story does highlight a few crucial points. First, it underscores the importance of having authoritative voices. People like Neil Cavuto in this instance, who are willing to challenge misinformation directly, even when it originates from within their own tribe, so to speak.
Right. So it's about prioritizing truth and accuracy over blind allegiance, which is a tough thing to do, especially in the often polarized world of news and politics.
Absolutely. And then there's the responsibility of everyday citizens, each and every one of us. We can't just be passive consumers of information. We have to be critical thinkers, especially in the age of social media where rumors and half-truths can spread like wildfire.
That's easier said than done, though, right? I mean, how can people even begin to sift through the sheer volume of information? Especially during a crisis when emotions are running high and access to reliable sources might be limited.
You're right. It's not easy, but it's more important now than ever before. We all have to become more discerning consumers of information, especially online.
It's almost like we need to develop a whole new set of reflexes for this digital age.
In a way, we do. And this case with Hurricane Helene, it really highlights a crucial question that goes beyond just spotting fake news headlines.
Okay, I'm curious. What question does this story leave you with?
Well, it makes you think, what's the responsibility of public figures, especially those in positions of power, when it comes to the information they share during emergencies?
Yeah, that's a big one. Because on the one hand, you have people who are looking to these figures for reassurance and guidance during times of crisis. But on the other hand, as we've seen, their words can be misused to mislead and sow discord.
Precisely. And this situation with the Hurricane Helene relief efforts, it underscores how even a seemingly simple claim, if it's untrue and amplified by someone with a large platform, it can quickly spiral out of control and have very real-world consequences.
It's a stark reminder that words have power, especially in the hands of those we trust.
They do. It makes you think, what can we do? How do we hold these public figures accountable for spreading misinformation, especially when accurate information is so critical, like during a natural disaster?
It's a tough question. No easy answers. But it feels like a conversation we need to be having more and more these days.
I agree. And while there are no simple solutions, I think this story underscores the vital importance of a vigilant media, a discerning public, and maybe most importantly, a commitment to civil discourse, even in the face of disagreement.
Good reminder that we all have a part to play in creating a more informed and resilient society, both in the real world and online.
Couldn't agree more. Being informed and thinking critically is our best defense against misinformation, especially during these times of crisis.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. To our listeners, we hope this conversation has given you some things to ponder as you navigate the world of information, especially during those critical moments when accurate information is paramount.
Remember, stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how we all learn and grow together.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time.